So today we're looking at a video essay on historical appropriation in cast.
Right.
Specifically, the pushback against ideas like a black Heathcliff or a black Anne Boleyn.
It's a very provocative piece. But, well, the execution has some serious mechanical problems.
It really does. I think the first big issue is just what is it trying to be?
What do you mean?
Well, it feels like it has an identity crisis. The essay keeps undermining its own, very sophisticated analysis by dipping into this really dismissive internet rant style.
Okay, I see that. But you see that style a lot in video essays, right? That snarky tone. Why doesn't it work here?
Because the two sides feel so disconnected. You can't be citing, 19th century Yorkshire social history in one sense.
And then in the next.
And then in the next be talking about Bridgerton fans doing serious bean flick. It just gives you whiplash.
It does cheapen the academic side of it.
It really does. And it gets worse when you think about who they say they're trying to reach.
All right, the outro.
Yeah. In the outro, they say they want to be a center-left voice reaching out. But how can you do that when you're calling the other side's views obnoxiously diluted fan fiction by Redditors?
You're just preaching to the choir at that point. You've shut the conversation down before it even starts.
Exact. So what's the fix?
You have to strip out the insults.
Just get rid of them. The argument underneath is much stronger. Instead of mocking the audience, critique the genre.
So for Bridgerton,
Call it anachronistic fantasy, or I think they actually used the phrase Regency-themed mood board porn at one point.
which is sharp and it makes a point without attacking the viewer.
Precisely. And for the Heathcliff part?
Same idea, I guess?
Just stick to the textual evidence. The point that gypsy in 1847 meant a social outcast, not a specific ethnicity, it's a really strong one.
It is.
You don't need to call modern readers piously, scoldingly wrong to make that land. The evidence is enough.
Okay, so that's the tone. But you said that lack of discipline bleeds into the structure, too.
It does, which brings us to the second big problem. The argument conflates literary interpretation with the historical record.
Okay, hang on. Play devil's advocate for a second. Isn't the whole point that all of this falls under their term historical appropriation? Why split hairs between Heathcliff and Anne Boleyn?
Because one is a metaphor and the other is a documented person. One is a work of fiction, open to interpretation.
And the other is history.
Exactly. Treating Jacob Elordi as Heathcliff as the same kind of error as Jodie Turner-Smith as Anne Boleyn. It just blurs a really important line between artistic license and actual historical revisionism.
I see. So Heathcliff's darkness can be symbolic, but Anne Boleyn's racial identity was a matter of legal and political fact.
Precisely. And the essay needs to make that distinction clear. It needs a bridge.
A bridge?
Yeah, like a section that explicitly says, look, Heathcliff is a fictional construct. His darkness is symbolic of his outcast status. And Boleyn, on the other hand, her whiteness was, as the authors themselves point out, constitutive to her actual existence in 1536.
That actually makes the main argument stronger, doesn't it?
How so?
You're creating categories. The Wuthering Heights part becomes a critique of misusing literary context.
And the Anne Boleyn part is a misuse of historical authority.
Yeah, it adds a layer of nuance that's kind of missing right now.
It does. And, speaking of missing things, that leads to what I think is the most tragic flaw in this whole piece.
Okay.
They have this absolutely brilliant core theory, this idea of whiteness as a neutral carrier state.
Oh yeah, that was the best part of the whole thing.
It's the whole thesis. It's the thing people will remember and quote, and they bury it. It shows up so late.
I didn't notice that. It felt like we had to get through this sort of laundry list of casting complaints first.
Right? We're deep into the video hearing about Vikings, the Von Fursons, the Battle of Hastings.
And the central framework that would make sense of all of it still hasn't been introduced.
They buried the lead.
Completely. So the solution here is pretty straightforward, I think.
Move it up.
Move it all the way up.
Make that neutral carrier state theory the lens you use from the very beginning of the section.
So you start with the philosophy.
You start with it. You explain the asymmetry, that universality is only allowed to flow in one direction. And then you bring in the examples.
That's so much more effective. Then the casting for the Battle of Hastings isn't just a bizarre choice.
It becomes direct evidence for the theory. It's an example of how Englishness or Norse identity are not being treated as legitimate ethnocultural identities.
It turns a list of grievances into a unified, powerful argument.
Exactly.
So, to recap then, 3 main things.
Yep. First, fix the tone. Lose the internet slang to actually reach the audience you claim.
Second, create a clear distinction between adapting fiction and rewriting history. Separate the literary from the documented.
And finally, and maybe most importantly, take that brilliant neutral carrier state theory and put it right at the top.
Make it the thesis, not an afterthought.
Do those three things, and this piece goes from a pretty messy rant to a really robust and important piece of cultural comment.
Agreed. It has great bones.
It really does. So make those changes, and please send us the rewrite. We're very keen to see this one really land.